Salvete omnes. I'm sorry I couldn't be here with you today. I'm going to start by talking to you about, let me go ahead and minimize that, thank you. I'm going to start by going ahead and talking about sort of our objectives for the week and things that you should note of importance. So we talked about this yesterday on Monday, but I want to make sure we review it so that we all know what to expect. So starting with the packet, your quiz for new vocabulary will be on Thursday. So that's here. You need to define Chapter 47 derivatives. That's for extra credit. So if you want to write 5 Chapter 47 derivatives from the list and write definitions for them in English, that would be worth some extra credit homework points. The Chapter 47 story worksheet, that's the next page in your packet. That's just something for you to complete on your own for homework. You can do it in class today if you want to, or you can choose to work on your project instead and do that at home. The infinitive forms extended worksheet is extra practice for what we'll talk about today. It's not necessarily yours to complete for homework. I did say the whole packet was due Thursday, but this is one page that I'm not going to be worried about. And then finally, today, that brings us to today, which is completing the indirect statement guided notes video number 2, or rather, just the guided notes number 2, but that's what we'll cover in this video. And one more reminder, on 9/22, that's Monday, that's when we'll have our quest, our quiz over vocab and grammar for Chapter 47. Okay, so hopefully that clears up for you some questions about what you're supposed to be doing today and this week. All right, so now we're looking at our indirect statement guided notes number 2. Last chapter, we learned that the basic structure of indirect statement is, and hopefully you can all say this in your heads at this point, verb of the head plus subject accusative plus that last one is infinitive. Maybe I'll change the color on this so we can see it nice and easily. Okay, so that's what you needed to write in those blanks at the top of the page on the guided note-taking sheet. If you're not following along, now would be a good time to crack open that packet and turn to this page, indirect statement guided notes number 2. So yes, last chapter we learned the basic structure of indirect statement, VOH plus SA plus inf, right? As you know from your previous study of Latin, infinitives come in different tenses, some of which we haven't learned yet. Let's do that now by completing a chart of the verb amo, amare, amavi, amatus, to love. Last week, we reviewed our basic present active infinitives. So hopefully you can tell me that amare, maybe I'll do this also in red. Amare is our present active infinitive, meaning to love. And our passive infinitive then, since this is a first conjugation verb, right, would end in what 3 letters? Hopefully you said ARI, amari, and this would be translated to be loved. And I believe we left off with the perfect active infinitive, which looks just like a third principal part, amawi plus SSE, and is translated to have loved. You'll see that we actually use this one this time. Instead of just learning the form, we're going to be using these new infinitives. And then the passive form of the same infinitive, the perfect passive, is the fourth principal part plus esse. And it's translated similarly, it just means to have been loved. Which brings us to our future active infinitive, which is formed by taking basically the fourth principal part, and chopping off the normal ending us and replacing it with us and then adding esse. And this one means about to love. I'm sorry, to be about to love. Oh, I don't know why I got bigger, but it did. Okay. So I'll leave that there for a moment so you can finish copying that down. But just a reminder, these are the three, well, these two we learned last week. And this one we saw last week, we didn't really work with in sentences. And now we have the perfect passive infinitive, to have been loved, and the future active infinitive, amaturus esse, to be about to love. So what happens if we change the tense of the infinitive in indirect statement? Is that what it should say instead of statement? Let's look at the PowerPoint pictures to find out. So we've got a couple little formatting glitches here, so bear with me while I make these a little more comprehensible. All right, so we have sextus cum pupa dormit, which is just a direct statement, right? We can tell that because there's no verb of the head, there's no infinitive. So we're just seeing the direct statement about sextus, and hopefully, maybe you can figure this out on your own or in your group, but it should say Sextus sleeps with a doll. Haha, Sextus. We're always making fun of poor Sextus. All right, so Sextus sleeps with a doll, right? And I guess we're just paying him back for making fun of poor Cornelia earlier. All right, now we have our direct statement that we're familiar with. I'm going to let you think about this sentence for a second. Marcus Corneliae dicit sextum cum pupa dormire. So hopefully when you thought about it, you noticed we have a verb of the head, we have a subject infinitive, or subject accusative, and we have an infinitive. Marcus says to Cornelia that Sextus sleeps with a doll. So far, so good. We're staying in the present tense. This is what we've seen before. I'll highlight these red just so you know that you could be writing these down as well. Hopefully you are. It will help you with your homework. All right, now is where we get into the new forms of infinitive that we haven't really dealt with before. Not all of them, but some of them. All right. So here we have Marcus aliis discipulis dicit, sextum heri cum pupa dormivisse. So here this would be translated how? Marcus says to the other students that Sextus slept with a doll yesterday. Notice how the past tense infinitive changes the tense of the indirect statement that Sextus slept with a doll yesterday, but it doesn't change the tense of the main verb, which is Marcus says to the other students. Let's see if we can get back up to number 4 there. All right, this one we would then translate as Marcus says to Euclides that Sextus will sleep with a doll. Okay, so dormiturum esse being translated will sleep because it's our future active infinitive, that new form we saw above. And dormivisse being translated as Sextus slept, past tense, because it's our perfect active infinitive. Now, you may be wondering, what happens if you change the tense of the head verb? Well, it changes the tense of the indirect statement just so that it matches the tense of the head verb, right? So if Marcus told other students that Sextus slept with a doll yesterday, you can kind of imagine how the sentence might change, right? Dormivisse, suddenly we'd probably want to translate as pluperfect, because in relation to the main verb, he's telling the other students after Sextus slept with the doll yesterday. So we need to show that progression of time. So we would say Marcus said to the other students that Sextus had slept with the doll yesterday. Again, the translation changes only a little bit, but just to show that when the indirect statement happened in relation to the verb of the head. We'll do more practice with that when I'm back on Thursday. So if that isn't making sense to you now, don't worry. Just keep these notes as a reminder for how you translate these new forms of the infinitive. So in the example above, just to summarize what it says at the bottom here, you can see how the tense of the infinitive changes the meaning of the indirect statement. In picture number 2, I was up here, Marcus says to Cornelia that Sextus sleeps with the doll. Marcus is talking at the same time as Sextus is sleeping with the doll, right? See, he's right there in the picture telling Cornelia while Sextus is in the other room sleeping with the doll, so they're both present tense. In picture number 3, Marcus is talking about a time in the past when Sextus slept with the doll. So now he's telling the students the next day. Marcus says to the other students that Sextus slept with the doll yesterday, right? And in number 4, we have Marcus talking about a time in the future that Sextus will sleep with the doll. Marcus says to Euclides that Sextus will sleep with the doll because he's about to go into his room with the doll to go to bed. I like their expressions of shock. Oh no. All right. So that's sort of just a basic introduction to using different tense of infinitive with our indirect statements. And again, if it's not making total sense yet, that's okay. We will go over it again on Thursday. Our quest for this week isn't until Monday, so you have some time to sort of internalize this. But maybe there's someone else in your group who understands it a little bit better or thinks they could explain it to you if you're feeling totally lost. Your homework now would be to try and translate these sentences, which should be formatted better on your page than they are on mine because I'm working out of Chrome, to translate some of these sentences with our new tenses of the verbs, keeping in mind they're all going to be indirect statement, right, because that's what we're practicing. So this would be 47b, and some of the words will be glossed in the footnotes on 47b in your textbook. So if you want to look at your textbook as well, that might be helpful. Just keep in mind that I don't know the exact page number, so you have to look in your textbook for activity 47. All right, so are there any questions burning questions that you have? I want you to think about them now, and if you do, I want you to turn and ask a neighbor. And then I think once you've maybe hopefully answered those questions, you can work on either 47b, anything else in your packet, or your Roman Emperors project. So that's sort of where we are for today. All right, hopefully that helped. Walete.